How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lo4f, and today I'm doing another contract called Taking Out the Trash. It's one that you start on Crossroads. I wanted to do this a few days ago because when I selected the mission it wouldn't actually tell me where the garbage was, as it calls it on here. I don't really use that word over in England, but yeah, whereas eventually, for whatever reason, it's shown up now. It's down in the bottom left corner, at kind of the rail yard. I've got a goddamn horse down there already to go and investigate it. So they're like 2-slot cargo, so you've got to take 2 lots to the junkyard in Heartlands. So you're going to need enough room for 4 pieces of cargo, basically. So yeah, for this one we've whipped the old Bruce out. And there is quite a few different setups I suppose you could run, because you could just put a saddle low on and kind of do a step deck trailer, or take a ramped flatbed. But I had in mind that I wanted to use the little 2-slot trailer. And then yeah, just between the different setups I can have a crane on this, a sideboard, and still tow a trailer behind me as well. Apparently, I've not tested it yet, but I believe it to be true, is the Dolphin. Apparently they've adjusted that so you can have a crane, a sideboard, and a trailer on that as well. Which would have been another one I could have used tonight, just again as I'm sort of going through the different missions, trying to use sort of some vehicles that I don't always use too often. I knew it'd hit that bit of mud there. They've like buried a, yeah, the mud steps up quite a bit there. I've hit it quite a few times now. That's what she said. Because I quite like cutting across this way. It's kind of a pretty quick way over towards the trailer store and everything from the garage. But yeah, I used to think they were hiding a tree stump in there, but no, it's just a big bank of mud. Yeah, like I said, just trying to mix and match the vehicles I'm using. To be fair, I do use Bruce here and there. It's just a solid vehicle for towing stuff. Strictly speaking, I suppose it could have handled a mission with more cargo than this. But yeah, I was kind of trying to find a mix. I wanted the crane, the sideboard, and then be able to tow a trailer. Obviously, I got to bring the goddamn horse with me because you never know. He saves you bacon here, there, and everywhere. He's got fuels, repairs, and all the rest of it. Also, like, Bruce is pretty good for a long range vehicle. Like, if I brought the Dolphin, it probably wouldn't have mattered too much because again, I've got the horse. I've essentially got another 200 litres of fuel. It's a little bit easier to fit the loaf on the roof of Bruce though. Yeah, it's doable on the Dolphin. Like I said, the loaf is goddamn professional. He'll get anywhere he needs to. But you got to be more precise with it. Sorry, there's a little glitch going on there. And at least now with Bruce, even though he's still got his big fat characteristic chin that kind of digs and everything, but it's got the raisable suspension now, so at least you can like lift it up a little bit, and yeah, it's not brutal now. It still catches here and there, but in these sort of angles, like, you're gonna catch quite a lot of vehicles anyway, unless the steering is like literally right at the front of the vehicle. There's also got a custom paint job. I have used it and seen it before, but still, it's looking pretty good. See, places like that, you're gonna scuff your nose really with most trucks. As well, where I remember, I was messing around earlier. Fox has added, I think it's called the Commander 700, so it's like a version of the K700. And yeah, I was using it earlier. It feels way better. Definitely worth grabbing and giving it a go. The steering's just improved, so it's still articulated steering, but it's just nice. Like, I drove it earlier for an hour or two, just kind of flying around the map, not really doing much of anything, just sort of enjoying it. But yeah, whatever he's done to the articulation is kind of what the actual game devs need to do, really, and just make it like that, because it feels a hell of a lot better, and it all just works more like it should. The manipulated crane, I was able to lift a loaf with that, which when I tried it, it was probably a couple of weeks ago on one of the live streams, it couldn't quite pick the loaf up off the floor. And some people said, which I do agree with, it's probably like if I got it on a bit of a ledge and already had the loaf raised up a bit, it'd probably lift it. It just, the cranes can be a similar thing, where they don't want to lift something off the floor, but if you can get it off the floor, they'll suddenly be fine after that. So, but yeah, overall, like I said, driving it around, it was good. I'll definitely be using that in the live stream at the weekend, I reckon. I was umming and ahhing whether to, like, do I do a video on it or not, but I wasn't really, I didn't do anything in particular. I was just kind of roaming around, yeah, doing my own thing really. And then as I was looking through the missions, I just seen that it finally showed up the locations of the garbage on this one, so I wanted to go and get on with that mission. And then pretty soon, I've still got to unlock the Pike. I've found it, so it's as near as makes no difference, like done. But yeah, now I've got that K7M unlocked as well. I can finally get around to doing some of the review videos. Which I'm trying to think which one to do first, to be honest. I don't know, I'll figure it out. Yeah, you can see now, I know I'm towing some stuff and all sorts, but again, it's still, I think it is because, like, wanting another gear, quite often I drive stuff with a high range gearbox, and the high gear in the high range gearbox, I reckon it's got a little bit more pace than this, so I think that's why I just keep feeling like I'm going a few mile an hour slower than I normally do. Although to be fair, it does stand out a bit more on this phase, because you can just drive along the roads like this, you've got time to build up the speed. Once you're rallying across the countryside, you sort of don't really notice it as much, because, yeah, even though it doesn't look too fast now, when you're going across the big fat bumps and all the rest of it, yeah, it feels a lot quicker then. So when I was testing Fox's K700 out earlier as well, I was on my mod playthrough, and I realised I've not even had the advanced special gearbox this entire time, so I had to drive that from Northport to Pedro Bay and go and grab that. Had to go on YouTube, one of my own videos from ages ago, to realise where I left it. But luckily I had it in the TUZ 420 location video. Yeah, so this is the rail yard, the bottom corner. They don't feel like particularly heavy cargo, so that's not too bad. Or at least the crane's not really struggling with them, which, yeah. I like the fact that they've fixed the bigger cranes, but these little cranes are just still a bit dull and boring and weak. Not too keen on them, but it's not really got a lot of other options. When I was looking at vehicles to use tonight, I was considering using the Tatra Phoenix, because I quite like that vehicle. It's got a nice lenient high gear, it's got the high range gearbox, so it gets a bit of a move on and all the rest of it, but it's got its own like sideboard. It's a little bit different to this, but it won't let you have any of these small cranes. It only has like, you know, sort of a medium sized crane really, but you have to choose either or, which, looking back now, I suppose I could have put like the saddle on and put a step deck trailer. I don't know why, when I was starting this mission tonight, I just had it in my head that I wanted to do just take a little 2-slot trailer, because I really didn't want to do the 4-slot trailer, as it does drive me mad, even though it's bloody handy when you got the sideboard on that. Yeah, it's been pretty lenient on me so far with this phase for loading cargo, but for whatever reason it wasn't letting me do that. It said impossible to pack cargo, so give it a little nudge. That's what she said. I don't know why I was taking so bloody long to do that then. Yeah, then I've got to go to the Heartlands gateway, so you can sort of see the garage there. That's the way the map's normally rotated, so pretty much cutting all the way back across the map. Hence why I wanted a vehicle that's got a little bit more long range capability. They should add a roof rack to the Bruce by now really. He's certainly got a nice flat roof that would fit it pretty well. I mean, again, that's one of the many reasons why I take a goddamn horse with me, because he is basically now a roof rack for Bruce. I could also, if the cranes were not so horrifically weak, I could have moved the Lo4f over to just sit on top of the cargo now. And then yeah, instead of following the roads all the way back, as much as it'd be a sort of easier drive, thought we'll have to go the cross-country route. But overall, it's one thing I do quite like about this map, because if you're doing a mission where you have got like a load of cargo, even if like I know at some point we're going to have to move an 8-slot trailer that's got the fan blades on it, and to be fair, I don't strictly know if it's going to be on like these maps or anything. It might be on like the Harvest Court map. I think the Harvest Court map has got, I think its screenshot is some truck towing an 8-slot with the fan blade on it, so I don't know because I've not been on that map yet. But yeah, you kind of got the road options if you want to either take it easy or you got quite a bit of cargo that you don't want to flip. But situations like this, I knew Bruce's chin would catch a little bit, especially the amount of like ruts and gouges in the countryside as you're driving along here. But again, I prefer it. I'd rather that than just like a random patch of super mud and death mud that's just going to make you go 2 miles an hour. I did notice though quite a few times that trailer, the 2 slot, even though it's better than the 4 slot for not tipping, it doesn't take a lot before it wants to go. The only thing is it's sort of the hitch thing where you attach it to the truck is short enough that that kind of leans on it and it won't let it go all the way, but if you're leaning a bit yourself, it's yeah, a bit more of an awkward sod than I remember. Face plant now. I think it was about now. I know it sounds like I'm always blaming my cat, but he honestly does. I swear he haunts me. I looked round to grab my coffee and he was just peeking around the door looking at me. And then as soon as I spotted him, he come and jumped up on the sofa. But then as I'm leaning back to give him some room, his big fat bushy tail's like wiggling past the screen. I can hardly see what I'm doing. Yeah, we sort of nosedived a bit there, got it caught for a second, but again, one thing I like about Bruce is because he's got 10 wheels, there's plenty of grip, so even if you do get caught in somewhere like that, you can just kind of brute force your way out of it and it'll just kind of shove the front bumper through the terrain really. But even as far as hauling heavy cargo and all sorts, back when I did the review video with Bruce, he was one of the vehicles that stands out when I do the tests at the quarry. It just drove straight up the first, second and third hill with full cargo. And yeah, it wasn't an issue. So it's just, well, not at some point now. To be precise, I was bouncing along the hills, got a bit of a funny landing, and we tipped. And yeah, in a nutshell, this is why I bring the goddamn horse, because there's no amount of... I tried doing some panic winches as I was tipping. There's nothing anywhere near that I could have winched to. And yeah, at this point, I'd have 2 choices. I could either do the quit and reload method, but the game saves a lot less frequently than it used to. As I said, it used to do it every minute for about 5 seconds. Now, I don't know, it saves sort of every 5 or 10 minutes. So sometimes you can quit and reload and it's set you back further than if you just, yeah, went for the rescue and all that. The other option would be to go back to the garage, get something out there and drive down here, which there's obviously situations where you could crash just outside the garage and then it wouldn't necessarily be the slowest option. But I just like kind of setting off with everything I've got to make it to the end. I don't really... If I have to go back to the garage and get something, I sort of... yeah, sort of defeats the purpose. Like I kind of feel like I've not set off with the right tools for the job, but again, take a goddamn horse like a Swiss Army loaf. And yeah, you can see at this point, which is odd because normally Bruce is not too bad for flipping. I mean, the loaf dug his own little loaf hole and was he was anchored in there pretty well, but for whatever reason, Bruce was just kind of dragging on his side rather than tipping, which again, I've never really had an issue before. I don't know if I just got a bit unlucky with it, or if they've like adjusted the weight of it a bit. Especially that it was going uphill as well originally. But again, you can see with the goddamn horse, he gets the job done, but he was able to pull the Bruce with a trailer, crane, sideboard, all that, on its side up a hill. And the yeah, once the loaf dug his like little loaf hole, he was not going anywhere. And at some point, as someone said, it's like blasphemy, getting some other scouts out, which at some point I will, because like the Lodestar's a good scout, the F750, and there's a couple of others as well. But overall, the reason, or one of the many reasons I always take the loaf, is like he's small enough to fit on the roof and stuff like that. He doesn't weigh a lot, so he doesn't really make the vehicles like go load slower or anything. Yeah, when I tipped over, for example, he was leaning enough to where he can still fire up his engine. Biggest roof rack in the business. Just all sorts of things. It's like an overall, there's about 10 or 20 different boxes that he ticks, where all the other vehicles are a combination of, like, the Lodestar, for example, is a great vehicle. If you tip it, it's a bit of an awkward sod to get back to its wheels, and it never really lands, like, it always lands to where it's not going to start its engine. Yeah, it's also a little bit awkward to fit in the sideboard, and then the crane struggle to lift it a bit more. Just, yeah, all sorts of little things. I mean, strictly speaking, if you were going to tip a truck, if you could just click your fingers and have any vehicle nearby, something like the Tatran is a bit of a hauling machine. But trying to drag a Tatran around everywhere with you is so horrifically slow that I just can't handle it for too long. And yeah, you can see the cranes are just weak as anything these days. Could barely lift the Lo4f at some points. I don't really know why it helps, but disconnected the crane. Did it again. Made the arm of it as short as I possibly could. And we got it done. Got the Lo4f on there. He's facing the other way, but it's like sod it. That'll do. It counts. But yeah, I mean, stuff like that. That is literally not only why I take the Lo4f, but I like little sort of rescues like that where, yeah, it was alright. Even though the crane's like not long enough as well to reach the rear trailer, if you just kind of reverse and essentially jackknife the trailer, it's close, but you can just about reach and get it done without having to do it the long way, disconnect the trailer, drive up alongside it and do all that. As well, at the minute I've got the chain tyres on Bruce, because they're basically the muds but with chains on. Someone was saying in the comments, I can't check it myself, but again I believe what they're saying. Yeah, that the 3 new mud tyres, the stats are lower on like the mud terrain ability, whatever the hell it's called. Lower than like the original mud tyres. I've not had a chance to kind of test them side by side kind of thing, but it wouldn't surprise me. I don't know why, but it just wouldn't surprise me that they'd do that for some odd reason. Again, maybe they'll patch it out at some point. Overall, I don't feel like they've been terrible tyres. I've been using, kind of mixing and matching between them. Personally, looks-wise, I like the number 1 set, whatever the code name is before that. But yeah, I've tested all 3 out, and I've not noticed anything too crazy, but as we get each different phase, it's kind of hard to call it anyway, because sometimes they just have got like a complete different coding feel to the terrain and that, so it sort of can change from phase to phase. But yeah, I'll have to investigate that. I'll probably find a contest that's, if it's relatively like even, then I'll go and run that a few times and see. But yeah, again, I appreciate all you guys. Let me know all the good stuff in the comments. I've like pretty much everything I know in this game is from you guys. Let me know. So yeah, I appreciate it, and I'll just, as and when I remember, I'll mention it and pass it on, so you can avoid finding out the longer way. A fat patch of mud on that bit of road, but you can see on these this road now, you see how like kind of neat, pure tarmac road it is. The roads on the Heartlands, yeah, a little bit sketchy and worn down to say the least. Which doesn't matter for the most part. It was just, as I've said before, from ages ago on Big Salmon Peak, I think the yard, one of the yards, not the garage yard, was roughened up kind of the same, just where it was a bit iffy, and yeah, I managed to make my tyres go through the ground basically, and nearly kind of get stuck in the ground and just like that permanently, so it shouldn't make a difference for the most part. But if you see tyres start to go through it or anything, yeah, try and move your truck a bit, because it's sort of the worst of both worlds. If you go on like a muddy section of ground, that just sinks and stuff anyway, but with the road it's almost like it has got a hard surface, but if you can poke through it, yeah, that's what she said, yeah, it'll almost kind of lock your wheel there, where it's not just spongy ground that you're gonna squidge out the way. So yeah, just don't let that catch you out. I don't know why there's so many bus stops on this map. They'll have to give us a bus. I'll rally a bus. I'm sure we can fit plenty of loafs on our bus as well. On the roof, of course. And then yeah, round to the gateway to Heartlands. Again, this one it'd be nice to have a turbo boost. But you can see though, driving along the roads, you notice that it's a little bit on the slow side, but when I was cutting across the countryside and that tipped and everything, you never really notice it. I've not tried driving around in that swampy bit yet there. I'll have to give it a go at some point, see if it's like a complete just death mud no-go zone, or if they've been a bit fair with it. So yeah, on this map it's the junkyard, which pretty simple, kind of as you come through the gateway you just kind of start heading left across the map really. And then at this point you can go like down that road and cut through the yard, but there's a iffy looking road cutting across there. I was willing to take the chance. I thought for a second it might have just made my suspension go lower when I'd gone through the gateway, but it's not. Bruce just sits that low with his big fat chin. I don't know why, every time I see those tractors drowned everywhere, they just look too small. I know tractors are probably bigger these days, but some things look like remote controlled toys. And yeah, while I'm going along now, you can see with the road the difference. Like, it's just not nice, neat, smooth new tarmac. It's yeah, you got a chance of digging your way in a little bit. Well, this bit, if you can barely even call it a road. Again, apologies, there's a little glitch going on there. One day, I'll have a way around them. As I said, I think the best option is eventually when I get a PC, just use like a I can't remember what they're called now. Whatever it is that like just records the TV screen itself. Because I never get the glitches on the actual game. It's just, yeah, when I record the footage, it just keeps cutting like little half seconds out here and there. Thankfully, it's not really done at any time on this video in like any important time, but still. Drives me mad that it even thinks about it. Then yeah, at this point you start to miss those crappy old roads. Because in a lot of places the ruts in the road they definitely go a lot deeper now. That's what she said, of course. So yeah, you're best off trying to ride to the side or anything. I probably should have just drew a line and completely gone cross country, really. Because that's a funny thing, you can see like the field over to the left of me or whatever. Drive along that. Yeah, you won't really chew it up like this, whereas the roads, in many cases, are kind of the worst option to use. Problem is with like drawing freestyle across the map is I hate it when I miss a waypoint, and for whatever reason I don't want to just pause the map and delete the waypoint. At least when you're following the roads you kind of, yeah, you do collect them all. I was not close to tipping there, it was definitely leaning over a little bit, but overall Bruce is pretty well planted. Obviously with the goddamn horse on the roof it's going to be a little bit more tippy, and with the crane and sideboard and cargo and blah blah blah, but he sits pretty well. So like that swampy section to my right now, that's where I had to go and grab, was it the cargo? I can't even bloody remember, I don't know why, my memory's gone to shit recently. Yeah, I know I've got a Ford Click 9000 stuck over there somewhere though. That's like a killer swamp, it's just, I'll avoid that. Get it in high gear. High gear does pretty nice in Bruce. Again, it's not amazingly rapid, but just revs wise it keeps them going nicely. That Rockman's been here only for this small patch, but he went to town. Nice thing is with this phase as well though, I've done quite a few missions so far. I think this has got to be like sort of 13th, 14th odd video since the phase come out. It's been a couple of weeks now, and yeah, I don't even feel like I'm getting close to running out of missions really. Every time when I keep driving around I keep coming across like yellow squares on the ground, and near enough every time I go to check I've not even, you know, it still gives me the chance to accept the mission, so I'm still racking up quite a few of them as well. And I think I've still got a pretty hefty chunk of contracts left. Which, to a degree, I'm hoping a couple of the contracts get a little bit, yeah, sort of more involved. And not that I mind these, they've been fine. Like, a little sort of 20-minute to 30-minute mission is pretty nice. But every now and then, I don't mind doing one that's kind of a bit nearer an hour, doing a few more trips. Yeah, there's that sad excuse for a road that I just was the shortcut instead of cutting around to the yard. I don't know why, it was pulling out nicely of that boggy section, and then when I was on the other side, the high gear randomly decided to throw in the towel. And then yeah, swing a right here and go into the junkyard, or again we don't really call it that over here, scrapyard, that's what I'd call it. Oh no, not even quite there yet. Which I was hoping there was going to be more stuff at this place, but there's not really, other than it's a scrapyard. But I was hoping, I don't know, a repair station would be pretty cool over this end of the map. Maybe there will be later. I know there is quite a lot of stuff to unlock. That's certainly one thing with this phase, is between all the contracts there is a lot of stuff that needs unlocking. So close, and then the trailer decided no. Which again, even though the other 2-slot trailer is heavier, it definitely sits a lot more planted than this one. So I'll just edit that bit out just because the crane was being a slow long bastard. At least on this side of the junkyard, it's not too ruthless. There's not loads of stuff to get caught on. There is kind of another section to the junkyard over on the other side, which I eyeballed it. I didn't even bother going there. It looked pretty horrific. You can just sort of see it in the background. But yeah, we're here. Drop those 2 off. Job done. About 6.5 grand, so not too bad. It's quite a nice mission overall. Good excuse to go flying across the maps. Yeah, that's about it for today though. I hope you enjoyed, I hope that helps. Thanks for watching, thanks to my Patreon members. Get yourself a loaf, and I'll be back soon.